Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to You've Championed Yourself. Who are you? I'm your host, Chris Ferguson. Excuse me. It has been a dream of mine to showcase ordinary people doing extraordinary things for themselves and for others. Those who have taken their dreams and their ideas and turned it into their reality. As they reach beyond their personal struggles, their personal pains, and their traumas, where so many people give up, these people didn't lose hope. There are those few who can walk through their obstacles and challenges and they don't know where it's going to take them. They just trust themselves enough to do the follow through in their personal life, their career, and in relationships. And this is what I call a champion in life. Today, I have an amazing individual here. His name is Howard Brown. He has an amazing story. I've gotten to know Howard in the last couple days. And I'm grateful that he's willing to come on my podcast and talk about his journey. So let's welcome Howard. Hi.
Hi, Chris. How are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm so grateful and thankful you're here, Howard. You're so simplistic, but so humbled, but you have gone through so much in life.
Yes, but I'm thrilled to be here just to talk with you today and to celebrate and to inform, inspire, educate, and learn a little bit myself.
And I love that. I love that about you. Can we talk about your backstory?
Absolutely. I have a very cool backstory because I am a twin. I have a twin sister. Her name is Cheryl Joy Brown, but now CJ Jingers. We call her CJ. And it was amazing growing up with a twin because she's my best friend. And being a girl-boy thing, it was not competitive. We just always had a playmate, always someone to be with. So I was never alone. And later in life, we learned that that would be really important that she was a twin. We'll get to that. But we are best friends, and she's tremendous. She is such an amazing person. It's just, I love her, love her, love her.
I love that. I love that. But you've been through so much in your life. And can we do your backstory on your cancer and how you became a survivor of it?
So the story's a little complex, but I'm going to shorten it. Okay.
No, you don't have to. Just speak your piece. Speak your piece.
All right. Well,
we have time.
All right, no problem. But go through high school and college, and I'm about to set it off on my career, and I find a little lump on my cheekbone, left cheekbone, and I didn't think of anything like it. I was invincible, starting my career, moving to Dayton, Ohio. I was in shape and didn't even think I could get sick. And I ended up having this little lump on my cheekbone. And I basically started making excuses. Oh, I got hit playing basketball. Oh, it's a pimple. Oh, it's a cyst. I don't know. I started making stuff up. And I ended up flying back to Boston to do a speech at the American Bankers Association in Boston. And I'm from Boston. And I went to stop in and see my folks, my parents. And my dad tricked me. Instead of going to play tennis, he took me to the emergency room of a community hospital. And he said, let's check that thing out. He goes, it's probably nothing. And so went in, and emergency room doctor finally got to us, looked at it, said, it's a cyst, and here's some erythromycin antibiotic, go on your way. Well, I went and did my speech in Boston, and I was feeling pretty cruddy. And I made it back home, and my dad's a no-nonsense, old school guy. I told him I felt horrible. He's like, we're going back. And the same emergency room doctor was there. But this time the wait was even longer because he brought in another doctor. Now, the doctor didn't even really introduce himself. So I now found out that it was an oncologist, but I didn't really tell me who it was. He did a quick look. He felt some lymph nodes, but he didn't really know. And then they took a biopsy. They took one, and then I went back and sat in the waiting room. They go, well, we didn't get enough. We're coming back, taking another slice. And then my dad took me to the airport. I went on with, my career. I was flying around. I think I flew either to New York or Florida or Philadelphia. I can't remember. And my parents were just excruciatingly waiting. This is the time of no cell phones, no internet, no computers. We were getting no information. Meanwhile, my little bump was growing into a purple little golf ball, and my glasses weren't fitting correctly, but I was chugging along, young, dumb, and having fun, right?
Aren't we all like that?
I guess so. So I ended up like 3 weeks went by and my parents are freaking out and I'm doing my thing and I get called back to Boston. I go to that little community hospital and I said, what'd you find out? They go, we don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know? We don't know, but we have an appointment for you at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, one of the world's renowned cancer research hospitals in the world in Boston, downtown Boston, at 2 p.m. I'd advise you being on time. So I'm in like an Armani suit. My dad's in a suit. My mom, we're like dressed up to go to a dinner or business meeting. And I get to the hospital and, this is, now I'm kind of like, Cancer Institute, something's up. We get there and I'm looking around the waiting room and it's, excuse the expression, older people. 23 years old. Everyone was older than me. So what I ended up doing is I wandered down the hall and there's the Jimmy Fund, which is a famous charity for children with blood cancer, leukemia, lymphoma. I went and hung out with the kids because they had no idea what's going on. And I sat there until we were called. And then we were called and they did some testing. And I go to this big office with this Dr. George Canales. He like invented chemotherapy for lymphomas. I was sitting in front. My parents were sitting in chairs behind me to my left. And in the corner was this Dr. Eric Rubin, who's become a very good friend of mine now. And he's like head of Merck research and development. So Dr. Canales says, Howard, you're a very sick young man. You have stage 4E T-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I did not hear another word. He went into doctor speak. I looked back out of the corner of my eye. My mom's bawling her eyes out. My dad, who's like a stone, is just sitting there stunned. And I look up at this young Harvard fellow, Eric Rubin. I go, what's he saying? What's he saying? And I think that's fairly common. But I basically I call it the deer in the headlights. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a clue what was going on, how sick I was. And the only thing I did hear from Dr. Canales is that we're going to pound this out. You're relatively young and we're going to pound this out with some heavy duty chemo. So I walked out of the office just stunned. I didn't know what to say or do. I don't think we said a word on the car ride home. It was about 40 minutes back out to the suburbs out of Boston. And then my phone at home where I grew up just became one giant busy signal. It was a landline and no one could get through and the word was starting to get out. My parents were sharing it with people, but we didn't know anything about that. Mm-hmm. So, over time, my dad's like, did you use Roundup? Of course, when I was mowing lawns, how did I get it? And quite frankly, the short answer to that is called mismatch repair. You bake a set of brownies, you try to bake the same formula, and sometimes you bake a rogue batch. Then you keep having that rogue batch. Well, I was having a rogue batch. The lymphoma was spread through my whole body. And so they scheduled me for a lot more tests and then chemotherapy. And so I get to the hospital and I'm freaked out. I don't even know what it is. You couldn't look it up on the internet to know what an infusion was. Yeah. This infusion room was like this place. I mean, it was like Dungeons and Dragons. I have no idea what that place is. I get to the hospital. Again, there's a long wait time. They take your blood. They do all these tests. I just went and sat with the kids because that got me down a little bit. And my mom would come and sit with the kids and she would bring they have candy all over the place because candy is sweet. Even though sugar and cancer love each other, it's still something that helps people calm down. Dr. Rubin comes out and he says to me, your liver function test is too high. We'll try again tomorrow. I was like, another sleepless night? What are you talking about, man? And I didn't know the difference. He says, yeah, but we have a field trip planned for you. I go, a field trip? Where am I going? I was like, you told me to get my affairs in order that, you don't know if you can help me. And then I have a very, limited time, maybe 3 to 6 months to live. And he said, do me a favor, go on the field trip. He goes, you're going to the cryogenic center. I go, cryo what? What's the cryo center? And I learned that when I got there down the street, it was a sperm bank. And I'm like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Why am I actually leaving a sample on ice? But I did it. And
we followed directions.
I just followed the orders right there. Long story short is that I ended up asking him why he made that decision 25 years later. I met up with him and his wife, Kim, and I said, why did you tell me that? And he started bawling his eyes out, and he just, good doctoring, good doctoring. Well, I hope there's a lot more good doctors out there that talk about fertility to young people. More people are living with cancer. It's 16 million now. It's going to go to 23 million by 2030. That was really good doctoring because, quite frankly, I became sterile after all the chemotherapy and full body radiation I had. So you move the clock forward. I finally have my first chemotherapies. I'm sick as a dog. I'm on steroids. And immediately I lose my hair within the first 2 cycles. And this is, I'm doing it every week. So it was the last 2 weeks of October. Got to figure my reunion, my college 5-year reunion, my high school 5-year reunion was like during Thanksgiving. And I show up and basically look like dead man walking. I mean, people were like, first guy we know getting cancer, oh my, I'm so sorry. He's gonna, he's a goner, right? Yeah. So I went, I wore gloves. My immune system was compromised. My mom was, checking people in, and she yanked me out of there pretty quickly because, I was very immune compromised. And I ended up failing a whole bunch of chemotherapies, and things looked really bleak. Things did not look good. But we tested my sister for bone marrow, and that's a swab of a cheek. Then they did some blood tests. 25% chance of her being a match, and she was 100% match. If I was an identical twin, it might not have worked. Mm-hmm. It's 1 in like 25,000 to be a match. Right. Okay, this is like donating a kidney or an organ. You got to be a match. So, and especially when you're talking about DNA and blood and bone marrow. So I ended up being an exact match, and that was hopeful. But I didn't know if I could get to, ready to be able to handle a bone marrow transplant. It's pretty intense. So I kept failing chemotherapies, and I ended up getting really sick, which is called neutropenic. I mean, you have a very fragile immune system, and I'm needing tons of blood transfusions. So mostly red cells and platelets. And when you get that, it gives you a pick-me-up. That's like drinking an energy drink, but you're drinking red blood cells or platelets. So this is all very blurry because you take Ativan to go to sleep and Halcyon and during chemo and all this stuff. These are sleeping pills and chemo anti-nausea medicines. And I ended up getting ready for transplant. And this is 1990. So it's not experimental, but it's not exactly, old school yet.
Yeah.
So they isolate you. They knock out your immune system. They blast you with chemotherapy. They blast you with full body radiation, which is really tough. And the way they do it at Dana-Farber is they put you in an ambulance for about 15 seconds and get you over to the Brigham and Women to use, get the radiation and then come back. And they clear the hallways. I mean, you have no immune system. So the 3 outcomes you can get with a bone marrow transplant is 1, it can kill you immediately and your body rejects it and shuts down. 2, it can kill you over time with graft versus host disease, or potentially it can work. And you wait and see as how your DNA and how your blood, how it grows back. And it grew back with my sister's, strength, and it killed the cancer. And I kid with her now. Now I can have my monthly period because I've got some of her DNA inside me, right? I'm allowed to have my moment. So it's a joke, but in all seriousness, I ended up doing a clinical trial called interleukin that strengthened my natural killer cells, and I got off chemotherapy. I was sick very quickly, and for lymphoma, and better quickly. It was about 18 months, and I moved to Florida to get better and stronger, and then I went back. I went on the company trip that I missed to Hawaii, and then I ended up going to California to rebuild my life and build Humpty Dumpty version 1 back again as 136 pounds, bald, and a whole new location, but warm weather in Marina del Rey, California. And so that I'll take a quick break there, but that was the first cancer, and that's the first backstory.
It's tough because unfortunately, you having this type of cancer in that day and age, it was an abnormality type of cancer. It wasn't front-line and something they had been researching for a while. Since we've talked, because of another podcast, I did some research on this. And in that research, it's only in the last 20 years that it's actually being studied and researched and people paying more of attention, because it seems to be more prevalent now than it was before.
I don't know. I mean, this Dr. Canellis had been looking at chemotherapy since the 60s, but again, it's come a long way. They're still practicing. There's still people are still getting diagnosed with leukemia and lymphoma today. But like, for example, Hodgkin's disease is curable. Cancer limited to the neck and things like that. So I'll quick the story is that I made it to California. I got myself back to full strength. I'm playing basketball, and I went to the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles, and I met my wife, Lisa. And we had a Hollywood romance, and I'm working at a startup that's in the broadcast industry, and it's amazing. And I started to put cancer really in the rearview mirror because I had 5 years of clean scans. They call that no evidence of disease, or finally, when you get to 5 years, you're in remission. So it's not going to come back, or the chances of it coming back are very small. So my life is mine again. You remember all the lessons of cancer and all the close calls and the grateful to be here, but you end up getting into life again, and you do sweat the small stuff. Moved up to Silicon Valley, and this is where cancer pops up again, as far as in a good way, is that I called for my frozen sperm and had it shipped out to San Jose, California, because Lisa and I decided to go with in vitro fertilization, and we did. And I won't go through the trials and tribulations of that, but we got our frozen miracle, Emily, on August 20th of 2001. The sperm was frozen for 11 years, and they defrosted it, and Lisa had extra eggs, and we got a beautiful, healthy baby girl. And it was amazing. I mean, that's the blessing. So miracle 1 is my sister's bone marrow. Miracle 2 is Emily is born, and life is good. We're living in Silicon Valley, and then my twin sister calls me and says, I'm moving to Michigan. My wife happens to be from Michigan, and I wanted my daughter to grow up with family and raise our family here. So we then, in 2005, moved to Michigan, and I did some more startups. Life is good. Everything's great. And I go have my 50-year-old colonoscopy. Well, my 50-year-old colonoscopy, I ended up waking up, and I look up at the gastroenterologist who I knew, and I said, Doc, everything's good? He's like, nope. He said, quite frankly, I found something. And when I find something, it's bad news. Well, it turned out to be bad news. And my wife, Lisa's holding my hand. And I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And within 10 days, I had a colon resection where 13.5 inches of my colon was removed. I had a chemo port installed. And I waited an extra couple of weeks as my daughter had the soccer national championships in Dallas. And right after that, early August, I started on in Rock'em Sock'em Chemo World again. And for the last now almost 6 years, I've now been doing that, but I am off treatment, and I am no evidence of disease now for 2 3/4 years. I still do quarterly surveillance, but I am now Humpty Dumpty version 2 is being rebuilt.
I so love your attitude, because so many people, this just tears them down and they give up, or they have a preconceived idea what things are and they don't want to give treatment a chance.
Well, cancer can be isolating. It's complex. You need to have a caregiver, which I had my mom and dad at first, and then my wife. They're superheroes, because although I had a lot of people praying for me, cheering me on, I didn't show my dark side as much. I'm very public about it, but I was curled up in a ball a lot. I'm on all these drugs, the side effects, failed clinical trials. Nothing was working. When I went metastatic stage 4, and it spread to my liver, my stomach lining, and my bowel. Again, I had that same talk with the doctor, and he was like, Guy, we don't solve stage 4 colorectal cancer very well. Most people are on chemo for a long time, and then they die. And there's a lot of death involved. And I just, again, we had to get my affairs in order. My daughter's, a freshman in high school, and I've been married for 22 years, and I just didn't know again. So I'm thrust into that darkness. But this time I was different. Remember the first time I told you I was a deer in the headlights? Not a deer in the headlights this time. This time I was a Marine on a mission. Having that experience before, I was able to kind of understand. Now, I was also a married and a father and had different responsibilities as a 23-year-old, but we had digital forums and digital support and advocacy where you can really look and find that help. Here's the one takeaway, though. If I got screened at age 40 or 42, we wouldn't be talking here, Chris. I probably would have had stage 1 or no colorectal cancer. It would have snipped a polyp. So if you're 45 and older, please go get screened or go get a Cologuard, which is a poop in a cup, and sent to a lab. Or if you have family history, it can be prevented. And a colonoscopy, which is the gold standard, yes, the prep is terrible, but for the 20 minutes that you get scoped, it is worth it because it can actually save you from all the crap I had to go through of chemo, multiple surgeries, failed clinical trial, and numerous side effects. And so I don't want anyone to go through that. It's horrible.
It actually it is. And yes, I really am glad that you're a man and you're being vulnerable, because most men don't seek treatment. They're just it's just so I slept wrong, I turned wrong, I played basketball, I did this, I did that,
Right.
and they excuse it away again.
I know. There's a Man Up to Cancer group that's only for men, and it's like a man cave. They talk sports and bear, but they also show some vulnerability. And I respect people that want to keep their cancer diagnosis and story private. That's not me. I want to basically be able to go out there and inspire, because I feel that, and I told you this, Chris, that I feel very blessed, very grateful, and very lucky. I am very lucky.
Well, I think you have this purpose that the Creator had for you. You just didn't know it, because by the grace of, what does that say? By the grace of God, go thee. And this message from you speaking out on your vulnerability and your experiences and the things that you went through. I am also a cancer survivor, and I had uterine cancer when I was 22 years of age. And so it back in the 80s, and they didn't have a lot of research for it. They did the cone biopsies, the DNCs, and all of this, and it just wasn't working. They said, well, we have to take your uterus. That's the only thing we can do. And I had no options. There was no, chemo for it or anything else. And in that when you mentioned being deer in the eyes as a deer in the headlights, I was the same way. Mm-hmm. When I had 2 pulmonary embolisms, one in each lung in 2012, I was a deer in the headlights. I thought I was having a heart attack. What the hell did I know? I drive myself to a hospital 50 miles away because it's a heart hospital. This is how thick-headed this woman is. And I get there and I said, yeah, I'm having chest pains. It feels like an elephant's on my chest. And they said, okay, we'll check your heart. We'll do everything else. And then they come back and they go, don't move. I'm like, what? And they said, don't move around. Just lay still. Don't move. And I'm like, oh, is it my heart? And they said, no, your heart's fine. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And they said, we have 2 pulmonary embolisms, one in each lung. And at that moment, I didn't have deer in the headlights, but I had a Charlie Brown classroom moment. Everybody was talking and I'm going, and all I'm hearing is, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my mother-in-law died from 1 blood clot. And so I didn't have a history, but in my family, in my husband's side, she did. And so all of a sudden I'm like, what's an embolism? Because it wasn't registering. He said, oh, you got 2 blood clots, 1 in each lung. Don't move around. We don't want them dislodged. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? And they said, yeah, just lay still. So I understood. And I call those ass puckering moments, just to be clear, when you go through this diagnosis and understanding, because it's just like, it's like somebody just hit you with a pig prod in the butt. And you're just like, oh, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, so I had a blood clot, cancer-induced blood clot in my left calf, and I'm on Eliquis, and that blood thinner is a miracle drug. So there are some improvements there. I take it every morning and every night, and everything's under control. Hopefully you do too.
I do. But the thing was, it was one of those things that they put me on warfarin.
Oh yeah.
And that was really harsh on my system. I love vegetables. And you can't eat anything green because it's got K vitamin, and that nullifies the warfarin. It counteracts it. So in that, but let's talk about volunteering bridge building. Absolutely. Because when I first heard you speak of that, I was like in awe.
Oh, that's nice. I got to give my wife Lisa. So I was a workaholic, and after cancer you get into your old habits. I was just working like a crazy man. I'd gone to my first startup, and I'm building the business. Things are going great. And there's 2 things that she said to me. One was that there's more to life than working. You have to have balance. And 2, if you want to, she puts an article down that families that eat dinner together stay together. And I was not home for dinner a lot. And so she was like, we're going to bring a child into this world, especially with in vitro, you got to be home for dinner. But I will tell you that, so in the Jewish world, there's a word called tikkun olam. It means healing and repairing the world. We have an understanding that this world is broken and people are broken, and my Humpty Dumpty back together again makes a lot of sense. And so I met Lisa through community service in the Jewish community, and two major things. One, I became a Jewish big brother, and it was, I will tell you, outside my daughter being born, it's been one of the most important things I've ever done, is to meet a dad that wasn't in the picture, and to meet this young man, Ian, and he was 10. And we rode down to Santa Monica Pier, and we played chess at the beach. And we then got like a milkshake, and we rode back, and roll the clock forward 29 years. And this is not high, it's pretty highly unusual to last this long, because normally at age 18, the matches stop. We are now a meshed family. He is now married. He's had his first son, who's a year old, to his wife, Sarah. I got to stand up at his wedding, even after some cancer surgery. I forced myself out there. And my daughter, Emily, calls him Uncle Ian. We are his family. His parents, his dad is out of prison and passed away. His mom passed away. We're Ian's family. And so it's a really remarkable thing. And people are like, oh, you did so much for Ian. I was like, the movie Out of the Blind Side. No, he did so much for me and our family.
Right.
It's we wrapped ourselves around each other. We were open to that possibility. And it's an amazing thing to be able to have this much influence back and forth on each other. And it's not always smooth, it's family, right? So, you don't get along all the time, but we get along really well. And he lives out in the West Coast. And that's one moment. The second moment is that I happen to be a decent fundraiser. And so when you're in these nonprofits, and especially in the Jewish community, everybody needs a fundraiser as a volunteer and or a professional. And so I started to build up a reputation that I could call on, people with high net worth individuals. And I ended up doing that both in the nonprofit world and professionally for startup companies, tech companies. And I moved to Michigan in 2005, and I learned, because I had been here before, but when you live here, you got to understand that the largest Arab Muslim population outside the Middle East lives in Dearborn, Michigan, or in the suburbs of Detroit. And there's another sect called Chaldean, which are Iraqi Christians. They have, probably 300,000 of each population here. Well, the Jewish community here in Michigan, it was 100,000. Now it's 65,000. And I got into doing that bridge building work with other Muslims and Iraqi Christians. And it's been so rewarding, because we're so much alike, more than we are. Now, move the Middle East situation out of the equation. We live in America, right? And there's just so much learning, and I've been able to do that. And that's just some amazing stories of meeting with, ambassadors and consul generals and important businessmen, and to build trust within a community. And it's just very valuable work. And it's part of Tikkun Olam. It's part of repairing and healing this world. And it's part of kindness. And it's part of letting in the stranger into Father Abraham's tent. That's what they were told to do in the Bible, in the Quran, right? In the New Testament, be kind to one another. Love thy brother and sister.
I love the golden rule.
So I'm not super religious, but I am super values based and super community based. And so these relationships and putting yourself out there, they broaden your life. They help me get through cancer. Because I had people praying for me in every different language you can think of. Whether it's, it doesn't matter. Pray to Jesus, pray to Allah. I don't care. They were praying for me and cheering me on. So I have to say is that it also makes for a very interesting life and book with some cool stories.
I agree because, but here's the thing is, and this is one message I put out in the world, because I've seen all the negative things humanity does to each other in the 40 years of law enforcement I was in.
Sure.
However, I was all about children, like you, wanting to hang out with the kids, because I was that throwaway kid. I was that abandoned kid at 8 years old. And it was because of society norms at the time, because back in the 60s in this country, divorce wasn't acceptable. Single moms raising 6 kids wasn't acceptable. So the church, the Catholic Church, tells my mother, I'll help you. And then June of that year, I find myself becoming an orphan and separated from my brothers and sisters. So the fact is that it was like, okay, so now I'm on my own. But in bridging the gap with children, they're our future. We have to invest in them. And for us to think anything different is ludicrous. So again, I did the work with troubled youth for 21 years out of my 40 years.
It's beautiful. So you wanted to pay it forward, totally opposite how you affected you. That's beautiful.
And I was like bench pressing 200 pounds. I was this badass girl. So I'm working the streets of Miami-Dade and Fort Lauderdale dealing with gang members. Sure. And after making such an impact and changing the laws in Florida, truancy wasn't illegal. Mm. So there were so many kids falling through the cracks, and you can drop out at 16. And it's like, no, if one drops out, they all just, it's like a domino effect. Yeah. So I love the fact that you have bridged this gap. And we all know that the Muslims and the Jewish people don't get along. And so they have a centuries long history of not getting along because of the Middle East and all of the land and properties, is because they're still evolving over there. But I love the fact that you got beyond politics. You got beyond emotions and cultures and traditions. And that's amazing.
Oh, you get, at the end of the day, you get to humanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was my next comment. But anyway, sure. So let's talk about, is it the resilience to you?
Resilience is something that can be, you're born with. But just like you explained that your resilience from going from an orphaned 8-year-old to help and to bench pressing 200, going into law enforcement, resilience is with you. It can be taught. You can watch it and observe it from your parents, but you can also build it like a muscle. And I have to say that there were many days I didn't want to get up, but getting up and going to check the mailbox, or my dog Cody was helpful because he wanted to go 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 steps further, especially after major surgeries. And there's motivations that I used for resilience, because it can get dark and it can get lonely. And my motivation was to make it to my daughter's graduation. I didn't know how I was going to get there. You don't always have the map. It's not there just yet. There's not always a clear path. And that was the first one. And the second motivation was to now college, and she's going to graduate in December, early from University of Michigan. And then, you know what? I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable, even though I'm only, 2 3/4 years out, is that I'm going to walk her down the aisle. I'm going to make that happen. And so having those goals is important. And then the most key, the fourth point of resilience to me is finding your happy place. And so it can be yoga, it can be nature, it can be art. It can be a destination like Disneyland, a happy place on earth, right? Mine is the basketball court. And why the basketball court is because I get into a zone where I have no stress. I don't feel like a cancer patient because my boys won't let me. They treat me and trash talk me all regards. And we do the same back and forth. And I had to get back on the basketball court. So you have to have these goals, okay, even if they're a little bit hard to reach, to be able to get there. So I played when I had chemotherapy. I played, and I invited my doctors to play, and I played when it was safe to do so after surgeries, but I was terrible. I've worked extremely hard to get back. Now I'm 56, so I'm not covering 25-year-old guys, but I am now back in great shape. I'm playing basketball at least 2-3 times a week. And to me, that's my measurement. That was my high bar. And now I have to now other high bars. So the other high bar now is putting Humpty Dumpty 2 back is career. Career is now coming, and the book and the speaker, and we'll talk about it in a second, but that's what's happening. So I would say that you need to set small goals, medium and large goals, almost like planning a business, and you need to go achieve them. You need to make it happen.
Stay focused. Absolutely. Staying focused is key.
And that's resilience. And there's the emotional part called mental toughness. There's that physical part. And then there are a financial part. And then there's also relationships. There are relationships that break or disappear or accelerate, during this time.
Well, see, this is the thing is I never I guess I was one of those thick-headed kids, and I just never planned it out. I just did.
Yeah.
I didn't say, oh, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to try this. I didn't think about this. I just did. And I think in many instances for you, you just did too. That's how you got and figured out what your next step was. Because when you're in the moment of it, you're just like, oh my gosh, what's next? What's my next step? What's my next step? And they can't give you absolutes. And you're just like, okay, one foot in front of the other. Let's just get this path going. Let's just get it walked down the road. Let's go after it.
Well, there's an acronym called PACE. I make these things up. Positive attitude changes everything. How's your pace? Mm-hmm. And that pace can be a baby step or a step back to get a step forward. Or in my case, you can be 5 steps forward and jump to the basketball court. You got to do it yourself. You got to find your blueprint, because that blueprint is not painted for you. You have to be the maestro of your blueprint.
I love that. I love that. And so let's talk about your book, Shining Brightly.
Sure.
It's coming out sometime next week.
I'm hoping. I think it's going to now push to after July 4th. Better right than right away. It's really close to the end. So I took the time from cancer to COVID, and I dictated a book over almost 200 Zooms to my publisher and editor, Front Edge Publishing, and I didn't have a manuscript. You got to know your strengths. I'm not a great writer, but I'm a decent speaker. So I dictated my story. I got to walk back my life during COVID, from my grandmother in what's called the shtetl, or the farm, or the one-room house with a mud floor with 6 kids and 2 parents in Russia, and how she got to this country to start my family. I got to walk back and interview over 150 people that were important in my life. You don't get to do that very often. And I got to do that over COVID, and I'm grateful for that. And out came these transcripts, which became chapters, which became Shining Brightly. And I am excited to have be a published author. And it is my memoir. And the cancer chapters are hard because they're raw and they're tough, but there's lessons to be learned there. But the story of mentorship, the story of meeting my wife, the story of this interfaith, bridge building, the story of sharing hope as a currency. We can share love and share hugs, but now we got to share hope, because I got to tell you, wars in the Ukraine, shootings in schools, and the insurrections and all this yucky stuff. I'm not putting my head in the sand, and I acknowledge it. And there's work to be done, but I want to hang out on Positive Street. That's where I'm preferring to hang out.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ear. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm actually the same. But the thing is I worked at a school for 15 years, an alternative school. I took guns off of kids. I took Chinese stars off of kids that were coming to school to go after somebody. But the bottom line is, in the 15 years, we never had a school shooting. I knew Scott Fye, who was the football coach at Stoneman Douglas, that was killed when that Cruz boy went to the school. And the backstory that people don't know is that a year previously, the school district would not allow the police to file a police report against him, because it would have expelled him. He wouldn't have been at school, but he would have been a database for domestic violence and would not have been allowed to purchase a gun at 18. Yeah. But because that fell through the cracks, because they were more concerned about children of color getting arrested and getting a record than doing what is required, they could have prevented that. And then there's an investigation. I've seen the whole transcripts, being in schools and in charge. It was like the principals and the administrators actually a year before said, you know what, if there was anybody going to do a school shooting, it would be that kid. Well, if you know that and you don't get a threat assessment, because I used to do the threat assessments in Broward County at a high school. And in those threat assessments, you identify the problem before it happens. You don't wait. So that was preventable. It was preventable.
We have one for 40 minutes from where I live in Oxford High School, where they found the young man brought a gun to school that his parents bought him for his birthday. He had drawings and everything. They brought him into the office. They let him stay in school that day. Bad mistake. And he ended up shooting 4 students and injuring others. And it's under court case now, and he's pled insanity. But they did bring the parents in as and they're under trial too now. But again, I'm not sticking my head in the sand, and I'm aware. And I advocate for gun control and licenses and being 21. But there's only so much. We live in a digital age today. You know, if you talk about the differences of when I had cancer the first time and cancer this time, it's a blink of an eyelash, and there's something else that happened that takes your eye away. So, I mean, we have a society that's ADD because of all this social media, and quite frankly, it's you have to filter. I have to filter what I want to be able to take in and take out, because I'm still healing. I mean, I have something.
I agree. I being in law enforcement, I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the news. I don't want that negativity. So I get it. However, if you can prevent it. And it has nothing to do with politics. It is about humanity. It is about kids and stopping the violence.
I agree. Agree 100%.
You won't get me on my soapbox. You're not going to get me on my soapbox.
But I'm so excited about the book, because I think it's going to bring a lot of positivity, a lot of inspiration. And I'm going to be speaking at hospitals for fundraisers, and at med schools and universities and pharma and corporations. I have about 8 different talks, but everyone seems to want to hear about the cancer 30 years apart talk and the resilience talk, but getting back up again. But that's okay. We're working on that, but it's important. But I'm really glad to tell my story, because it leaves a legacy. Okay. And becoming a published author is not easy. It was a long game here. And so I'm excited about some lives I can change, and to bring some goodness into people's hearts, and to share hope and share positivity.
I welcome you to the published author side. I'm a 3-time international bestseller, so I understand the struggles. We have a lot of parallels here, Howard.
I haven't sold one copy yet, so I've got a lot. Okay,
you let me know, and I'll buy it. I'll be your first purchaser of your book, just to make sure that it gets there.
All right.
And in the interim of that, I honor you for your positiveness, the things that you do in your life, and most people don't understand that positive vibe, even on a bad day, builds you up. And so no matter, I mean, of course we have dark days. All of us do. We don't have to go through cancer to have a dark day.
That's right.
But in you, it's always that shining light, because you know what's at the end of the tunnel. You know there's hope. You know that there's a future. You know there's another step. There's another goal. There's another plan. And so your biggest message for my audience, in fact, what 3 tips would you give my audience as far as finding hope?
I thought about it a little bit, because so the first thing that I want to tell the audience is that self-care, right? You got to be right yourself. You know, try to see if you're on par emotionally and physically, as much as possible. So that you can then lift yourself up. I say that. The second is that if you can lift yourself up, you can then lift others up. And that actually will bring joy to you and to someone else. And then together, we all shine more brightly together. And that makes the world a better place. And that's when you need the shining glasses, because you know what? Now we're a force multiplier there for goodness and for positivity and hope and kindness. And that's the world that we need to create for our children and for ourselves.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. So in that, okay, I ask this of all my guests. If you look at any of my podcasts, you'll see, take a deep breath in, close your eyes, and connect to your inner child. And what would he say about you now, about how far you've come? And exhale.
My inner child would say to me that very proud of me. I'm tearing up a little bit, because I don't normally do this type of an exercise, Chris. He would say that you're living an authentic life, and that you have it's not what you get, it's what you give. And I am executing on that as best as I can every day.
And he's also saying that no matter how tough it got, you held on. I see this vision of you in this, that back in the 80s, it was a kitty cat hanging onto a rope and it said, "Hang in there, baby." Yeah. That was you for both of these times, but in it, you never let go, because you saw yourself in your future, and that gave hope.
Amen.
I didn't know. That's my empathic side coming in and kicking in. But I love the fact that you hadn't connected with your 5-year-old child for a while, and that's why it was emotional for it. But stay in touch, because they walk this with you and they'll guide you.
I appreciate that. I'm learning. I'm the student here. You're
okay. You're okay. But in all of this, I love the fact that you're vulnerable enough to speak your story and talk to people about it, so that this is one of those topics people don't talk about. They don't want to talk about cancer. They don't want to talk about colon cancer. And colon cancer is one of the easiest to detect, but one of the hardest ones to deal with, because people don't detect them soon enough.
That's right.
So, Howard, I honor you, and I thank you for being here today and for being that exuberant being in life for humanity.
Well, thank you for asking me to be on. I mean, we have lots of other topics we can go on. I'll have you back on my show as well. But I just want to say thank you, that people can get in touch with me at shiningbrightly.com. For booking, speaking, anything you need. The book will be available soon. Just sign up for the mailing list, and we'll let you know immediately. And thank you very much for having me here. This it means so much, because we've walked in some of the same shoes, and feel like kindred spirits.
And I agree. But the one thing is that in all of this, we're different, because it's that unconditional love that we connect. It's your unconditional love for humanity, and it's my unconditional love for humanity, despite our beginnings, how we came into this world. So I love that.
I do too.
Hold on just one second. Wow, folks, I told you this was going to be amazing. I told you this was going to be exciting. Howard Brown has, oh, wow, he's a special kind of individual to be able to speak and talk and be that vulnerable person, and then to turn around and build his dreams and to share his thoughts and his ideas and turning them into his reality, not once, but twice, 3 times. No matter what he faced, he never gave up on himself. He never gave up on life, and he never gave up on hope. Howard Brown has taken the steps, gone past his fears. He stayed the course, and he had the courage to do the follow through to the end. Howard Brown, you've championed yourself. We know who you've become. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your stories, your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences, and your dreams with us here today.